Awesome. Good morning, social media breakfast, live and online. I so appreciate you being here today. I'm very, very excited today to have Mike Metzler with me. Hi, Mike.
Hello, happy to be here.
Happy to have you here too. And so Mike is pretty impressive, I would say. I've known him for a long time, but he's always been a brand guy. He's worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, AT&T, UFC, NASCAR, some huge brands. And so you've had a lot of interesting different kinds of work that you've done around social media, especially. Kind of tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay, so I was running a business development sales group for some mobile app and website developers here in Houston, catering to oil and gas. I had some friends who were Viners at the time. So this was back in 2014, 2015. They're like, hey, you do contracts. Can you come help us, maybe do some of these brand deals? We've got brands coming to us for all sorts of things. And so I started working with them, helping them, make sure that the contracts were okay and structured right. We got the deliverables pared down. And before I knew it, they were making $7,500 per Vine. And this was early. I mean, social media has been out for a while, but this was early video focused social media. So that was kind of blowing my mind that like 6 seconds for this, like, okay, this is a big thing. And then Snapchat came out and I was like, well, if they're making money on Vine, like surely this next thing, I should just become aware of it so that I know maybe they'll get big on it, or I can find somebody else and I can sell their services. So I needed to explore the platform. So I found I was like, okay, well, who is big on Snapchat right now? And the only people I could find were people who were doodling and drawing on Snapchat and then posting their drawings on Twitter or Tumblr or else places, because Snapchat back in the day was a very closed platform. This was before stories. This was before the only way you could see something is if you sent it to them like directly. So I was like, okay, they're drawing. I can draw. I can doodle. Now I need to figure out my niche. And I was like, okay, the internet loves corgis. So I was take a picture of my corgi and I would draw on it and I would post it on. I would post it and then I would post it on Tumblr. Then I would go on Fiverr and I would buy retumbles or reblogs or whatever to try to get the awareness up, because there was no really way to grow on Snapchat back then. I got laid off from my sales job. And then a couple days later, one of my times I'd paid $5 for some random guy to reblog some of my corgi drawings. I woke up with 10,000 Snapchat followers. And this was like in 2015. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, all right, like I don't have to find a job. I'm going to be an influencer.
Because you already knew that you could make, $7,000, $8,000.
Yeah, I was like, these people are making this. Like, why can't I do it? I know.
Why not?
So I started stalking all the brands that I wanted to work for and looking at like who the social media director was at these companies. And I found out that the president of the Corgi Club of Las Vegas was also the social media director at UFC. And so I found a picture of her dog.
So tell them who UFC is in case people don't
Ultimate
know.
Fighting Championship. They do all the big pay-per-views, Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, all those big names. I reached out to her. I found a picture of her corgi. I drew it as the president of the United States because she was president of the club.
Of course.
She's like, hey, we need somebody to come, run our Snapchat. Like, can you come in? And so that started a 2-year journey with UFC, which ultimately led to a lot of other brand deals and working with brands and helping them launch Snapchat and learning from the inside what it takes to launch a new platform within some of these big brands was incredibly helpful. Along the way, I ran into a guy named Nick Cicero, who was starting a analytics company, and all they had at the time was Snapchat analytics, but they were the first to the market with it. And so lots of people were coming to them with Snapchat, like influencer requests, like, hey, can you do this influencer campaign? Seems like a lot of Snapchatters. So he's like, hey, why don't you come here, manage our influencer relations? All the Snapchatters, we'll do Snapchat, and we'll take the money from that and we'll fund it into our analytics tool. Before we knew it, we'd grown to Twitter, we had Vine. I'm not sure if anybody remembers YouNow.
I do.
Yeah. So we were the first analytics for YouNow. And as we launched that, somebody at Facebook was watching and they're like, hey, we need analytics for Facebook Live. And so we became the first analytics platform to launch analytics for Facebook Live. Then whenever Instagram stories rolled out,
Mhm.
we were the first people to get access to the API and do that. And then later on, TikTok came out, and then we figured out a way to build the first analytics for that. So this whole time, I'm getting all this experience with analytics. I'm used to being a creator, and I'm just thinking, okay, I have access. We're starting to work with some of these biggest brands in the world: WWE, NBA, NFL, Viacom, and we
Mhm.
have all this analytics and data that nobody else has because we're the only people that have these tools. It's like, okay, well, how can we utilize this? And so I started looking and diving into the analytics on an aggregate level to really see what types of things really move the needle. Who was growing and why were they growing? And I started writing these analytics reports. I started doing, because at the time it's like, well, as a sports team, how many views should I get on my Instagram stories?
Right.
And because nobody knows, because it's all you can't see it. So we created benchmark reports. Like the average MLB team has 10,000 views per story, and so people
Mhm.
could see where they landed in aggregate of all the other sports teams. And we did that for brands. We did that, and then further on, we did that for TikTok, and we like movies, entertainment, and it became this big benchmarking process. Um, and it became very popular. Our company eventually got acquired by the leading streaming analytics company, and we started figuring out how to pair streaming analytics with social analytics, because what people see on social, they go watch on streaming. What
Right.
people see on streaming, they go watch on social. And so we were trying to build a bridge to connect that. So all throughout that, I had this great background of being a content creator, and now I have all these analytics. And so I was always trying to figure out what sorts of content really moves the needle and why. And that's kind of led me to my career path to where it is, where being, an analytics, researcher, and looking at content marketing from that lens.
Right. And from the outside looking in, of course, we all loved your corgi photos, I will say, back in the day. But I feel like that this has been a really interesting journey for you. And it's been a busy one, too. I mean, we don't see you much. So you're here in Houston, but
Yeah.
I see you occasionally. But the cool thing is that you have also taken all of this and you've simplified it, which is what we're here today for, is to
Yeah.
kind of get this kind of simplified idea out to all of you so that you can also take it. Because I mean, suffice it to say, we do not all have the leading, analytics platform at our disposal
It was nice.
from
It was
day to
nice.
day.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, I mean, that had to be like a playground.
It was. It was. It was. I mean, I look at all these. I think about what I want to know, and I think about it as a puzzle, and how can I figure this out with the data that'll lead
Hmm.
me to that conclusion. And as I've been doing this, I started out real complicated, and real, and then I'm like, it doesn't need to be this complicated. We can make a measurement strategy that's much easier to understand. And especially when you're in social and you've got to pitch this to your CMO, like you can't give them a 10-page brief. Here's what all the content's going to be. Here's why we're doing it. And that's where I started. And I was like, nobody's going to read this, like, except for me. Like, I'm
Yeah.
doing this, like, I might do this for myself, but this isn't good for the rest of the organization.
Right. So you needed to be able to translate what you were learning into some sort of format. And as we all know, for especially executives, one slide is pretty much all they can really, that's all they want.
That's all you get.
They want, yeah, that's all the time you get. In fact, I have, I think people have told me that, and I've seen it myself, is if you have 3 or 4 slides, you'll never get past the first one anyway, because they'll
Yeah.
have this big long discussion around it, and then their time's going to run out. So how do you get this across? And if you are a solopreneur, or a small company, or small organization, how do you boil this down to like just a few things that you should be tracking in order to know if you're doing well?
Mhm.
And I think, you've given us a really great, in fact, I put it over there. Somebody's going to need to bring me a copy of it because I forgot to bring it up here. Somebody wants to run it up. But you've boiled this down all to a very simple 1-page measurement. I call it dashboard. Here it is. You can hold up your dashboard. Hold your
Yeah.
dashboard.
It looks blank.
It's
but-
like, it looks
but we
blank
have
on that
some
side. So if you're watching online, you can go grab a copy of this dashboard by going to SMBHOU.com. And then you'll see Mike's lovely face there. And then right underneath it says download the dashboard, or download the handout. And so you can just download it from there if you want to see it. Because I know online you cannot see this from here. But what I love about it is you just have a nice little, chart basically. And it goes from, your vision. So let's talk through this chart.
Sure.
Why I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer, but why do you start with a vision, and what should that vision
I mean,
entail?
the vision is the ultimate goal. Like how if it's a perfect world and everything happens exactly the way you want it to,
That always happens.
what are you looking for at the end?
Right.
And it's probably to get new customers
Mhm.
or to sell products. For this one,
Yeah.
let me give some context. So I was working with a UFC adjacent brand that was focused on digital collectibles, not so NFTs, if people, but not a lot of people knew that the UFC did that. Not a lot of people are still interested in that. But it was our task to make them interested and make it aware. So, our social vision was to obviously get paying customers. But how were we going to do that? We were going to provide content and information with the hopes of them being rewarded. So getting free stuff or like
Yeah.
being rewarded with, in-person benefits. And hopefully that will convert people who see how cool it is to paying customers.
I think that's great. So it says, to grow the brand community by providing content and information that encourages them to get involved in hope of being rewarded, which later results in paying customers. So it has a goal and like what you're trying to get them to do, kind of, and then what you want out of it as a brand. Okay, so that would be number one. So what do you want as a brand? So when you go on social media every day as your brand, or if you're at a business or a company right now, why is your brand online every day? Why are you interacting? I think a lot of brands don't do that ever. Like I feel like this doesn't, I mean, you may have a goal, like you want people to sign up for things, or you want, so let's just take social media breakfast. Let's do a social media breakfast thing. I'm going to pick your brain.
Okay.
Can you be my consultant today?
Sure, I would
okay,
love
cool.
to be.
Awesome. So for social media breakfast, our brand is really to grow a community of Houston influencers and marketers and social media enthusiasts, let's say, that are, and we want to encourage all of them to grow in their professional development and connect with each other. And our goal is to get people to show up here and online to the live stream.
Sure.
Those are the two things.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no money involved, so.
Yeah,
it's free. So
not
there you
yet.
are. Well, I mean, there is, in the sense that I'd like to give all of us opportunities to grow in business, whether it be to find a job or to get get connections that get you there. I mean, having connections finds you jobs.
Yes.
It absolutely does every time. So that's jobs for people who are working for the man. And for those of us who aren't working for the man, it's so that we find great clients that actually love what we do and we love them. So that would be the two reasons. All right, cool.
Which leads us perfectly into the next point is, how do you do that? Like, how are you going to accomplish that?
Yes. So that would be your social goal. Well, there's a social goal.
Well, this is focused on social. I mean, you can remove social from some of these.
So the social media goal, if this is your social media strategy, or it could be so this next line is, I guess, dependent on the channel.
Yes.
So you would have one of these for your different types of channels.
And so for me,
right?
It's still kind of on the top of it, all social. Whenever I'm thinking about it, it's okay. So the main goal, our main goal is we want paying customers. How are we going to do that? What do we have to achieve to do that? And to achieve that, we have to increase awareness of our brand within the existing UFC customers. And so the main goal will be to educate, brand fans by participating in the UFC, or that know the UFC, that you can be rewarded with money, digital collectibles, tickets, pay-per-views, things like that. So that was how we were going to go out and activate it.
Got it. So that's cool. So that's the second one. So if you were going to do social media, that'd be one thing. But if you say you were going to do paid television ads, you'd do a different chart for that. Sure. So I don't mean by social media channel. I mean by
my brain is just focused 100% of the time on social media.
I get it. So I'm just talking. Well, this is social media breakfast. I was just telling you. I'm just saying that so we're clear about how we use this form.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then we have the brand proposition, and this one says the brand is home to the ultimate fan experience through exclusive access, gamified experiences, and digital ownership. So the brand proposition. explain to me why that is important and what exactly that
That's
is.
what, if somebody stops you, I mean, that's your 30-second elevator speech for it. If somebody stops you on it, like, and that just makes it clear to who you are and what you do, and you try to tie everything back to that. Like, we want to be the ultimate fan experience. What kind of content now can we create that's going to be around and convince people of that?
So we need a brand proposition for social media breakfast. What would that be? Let's pick your brain here.
Okay.
So I guess what would we be? We would be the ultimate place to learn about social media tactics in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, to be the leading social education hub of Houston,
Ooh, social media education hub of Houston.
or being
Somebody write
in
that down for
social
me,
marketing.
please. All right. Jennifer is like taking notes for us.
That's whenever if somebody approached you on the street and was like, "What's social media?" It's the absolute best place to up your game and learn about social media and learn new skills. And you'd be like, "Okay, I get that, yeah." And then you think about what content can we create and disseminate that's going to convince people of that.
Got it. Okay, that makes total sense. All right, so that's your brand proposition. And then the next thing you have here is content pillars. And I've seen content pillars used a number of different ways, and you're using this in what way?
So I've talked about this with a lot of people. People have different definitions for how. This is the way that I would put together, measurement strategies for different brands, or whenever I was doing research. And it starts with, okay, I need to find a way to group content in a way that I can measure them against each other, so that I can see which ones are working and which ones aren't. And within that, so, okay, you've got these big 5 buckets, and you can fit lots of different types of content in those buckets, and those are your content series or content themes, would be another word that I would use. But the content pillars are kind of like, let's put these on the bulletin board, and what is a specific piece of content that we can create that fits there, that supports that we know is separate from all these other ones. And this is where, I started thinking about this whenever I was going into these analytics tools and tagging content, because I was like, okay, I want to know which player on the Miami Heat gets the most engagement. And so I'm going to go in and look at the Miami Heat, all their content, and anytime it mentions Jimmy Butler, I'm going to do this. Anytime it mentions another player, I'm going to tag them with that, tag them with that. So then I can go and see, okay, turns out Jimmy Butler gets 20 times more engagement anytime he's mentioned. But this other player that you wouldn't expect does really well because he's got a big home, whatever. So I started thinking about how can we compare these, and whenever you can't fit everything into 5 or 6 buckets on our content, there's a lot of different factors in that, and so you have to make these big things. So in this one, it was giveaways, personality focused, product focused, replies, FOMO, and real time. And these are the types of content that I'm going to spend my week creating and making. But within those, you have different series, and that's important because I think about content series in a way that TV shows and TV networks think about their TV shows, and that
Episode.
No, TV series.
Series.
If
okay.
if a series is not performing well, what does a TV network do? They cut it and they replace it with something else.
Correct.
Your content pillars are probably something that you're not going to replace, very regularly, but you can replace content series, as soon as you see they're not working. So for this, we're on our social, and we're doing a bunch of different giveaways. We're doing giveaways for pay-per-view. We're doing giveaways for digital collectibles. We're doing giveaways for events. We're doing giveaways for tickets for UFC fights. And you could group all those together, but the way to take it a step further is to measure each one of those series as its own thing. And then you can see which one of these giveaways actually moves the needle the furthest. And then you can go on, and we have personality focus. And so that would be content that is around a specific person or a specific fighter that doesn't really talk too much about the brand. The brand is sort of secondary, but it's engaging content. We're looking for engagement with that. And then
so that would be what so let's talk about before we move on.
Sure.
So like for the giveaways, you would measure how many people. So just going down the line, I just want to go content series. You've got key analytics for that. So you have like in this series, we want certain things to happen, right? Like I want, so I guess for me, this bucket would be like events, social media breakfast events. And so we would say, our series are probably the each month's content, whatever. And then we'd be measuring how many people show up in person, how many people show up online, how much engagement there is in the chat online. Hi. So make sure you give us some comments, guys. And by the way, I have people listening.
We're measuring this.
And also we'll take your questions in a minute if you're online. So definitely put your questions in the chat if you're confused. And then, or even if you're not, we'd love your comments. So that, and then the KPIs are basically those things, right?
Yeah.
And then you just would measure that.
Yeah. And so for this one, our KPIs were not so much engagement or impressions. This was our way to get new followers, or to, this was the lowest hanging fruit, that, entries to contests, and then new followers are people that are coming here. And so I don't care, how many impressions it has if I got, 4 new followers and something else got a lot more impressions, but I didn't get any followers.
And
the goal of this
1,000 email
the goal of this content pillar was how I can gain new followers to our social account.
Okay, cool. So that was it. And also, I guess if they did entries to giveaways, that would be on an email list too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then, so the personality focus side of things, you're not measuring that. You're measuring likes, comments, shares, your engagement.
And that's because there's you got to think about your social strategy. How are you going to acquire new followers? How are you going to, get them to follow your page? But then once they're there, you have to keep them engaged. You have to figure out something else that is going to keep them to stay and coming back. And so you need to have a content series around, okay, how can we get new followers? And then how can we get them to stay and keep engaging with us? And for us, we found out that the best performing content was around the fighters, because those were the personalities. And so we would go to these events and I would interview the UFC fighters, and then we would make 15, 30-second clips, then distribute that, weekly. And that was purely not to try to get people to buy packs, but to keep our existing followers engaged.
That's really interesting. And of course you had that, that's what you had. You had these influencers that you could tap into. Not everybody has that. Some people hire influencers for sure. That's why they do it. But like for the average, boring business, maybe behind the scenes, that would be kind of,
for this, it's cutting up 15, 30-second clips from this conversation and putting them on Shorts and TikTok and things like that, and distributing. It's purely engagement. You're not advertising. Like it is social media breakfast. Like that's where this happened, but you're trying to just put content out there that's going to get people to watch it and hopefully learn something.
And think, oh, we should be there.
Yeah.
Very good. I like that. Okay, great. So that's personality focused. Product focused. That was an interesting one.
So as any business, there's going to be things that you need to do to promote you. It's most of the time it's going to be the stuff that gets the least engagement, but it's absolutely, from the higher ups, they're going to tell you that, like, talk about this new product feature, talk about this new product that we have rolling out. And, there's ways to make it engagement. For a lot of part, it's just stuff that you have to do. So this one for us, it was what product drops, what are the different contests that we have that are tied back to it.
You got some challenges with that, which is cool. That's a cool
company
idea.
Information, like what is your company doing, and keep in mind that you're trying to measure each one of these things, so that if you see that posting about our company's, new funding, or posting about our company's, activity or whatever is not moving the market, it's not doing anything, that's the time to cut something and replace it with a better idea. The whole part about this content strategy is define what you're making, figuring out what works, and then continuously iterating and improving and making it better.
Right. And then taking the things that went really well and doing more of that.
Yes.
Of course, but again, you're going to have to do these product things and they still might not have as big of engagement. So for example, like right now, we are going to be having the gift of guidance. Here, I'm throwing a product, a hole in here, a product hole. We're having the gift of guidance in December, and we're helping 10 nonprofits here in this space with their social media strategy for next year. And we're looking for table leaders and scribes. It's a wonderful, easy job for the scribe, especially, which is just basically taking notes. And then you give it back to the nonprofit at the end. Also, for those of you who have, great experience with this kind of stuff. Like, hey, I'm going to have to get you to come be a table leader.
I can do that.
Can you already tell
I
I'm
can
going
do
to
that.
get you to be a table leader? I'm just recruiting.
It's on camera now.
I'm recruiting the guest. I'm sorry. And those of you who are here, please. And we need some table leaders. And also, what's even more important right now, I need nonprofits to sign up. So we have a deadline of the 29th of October. So share that. If you're in the room, there is a QR code that you can scan to volunteer. Also on our SMBHOU.com, we have graphics and everything else you can share about the event, and the link to the event is there as well, which is on Eventbrite. So again, I would do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just did it.
Absolutely, we just did it.
All right, cool.
But now cut that promo and put it on TikTok.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, and speaking of that, because I'm crazy with the AI stuff. There is a new tool, or old tool, I don't know, Opus, who you basically, Jennifer, talked me into. So I have it. It's opus.pro, right? .pro. OPUS.pro. And you can take a video like I'm making right now, put it in Opus, and Opus will automatically go through and find the places where it thinks that you should cut and give you those, it cuts it for you. And you just tell it what size you want it to be. And it tells you what size, it tells you, you tell it what size you want it to cut it at. And it gives you a virility score, which I kind of take with a grain of salt, but they think this might be interesting. So
I love all those new AI tools.
So we're going to throw that in there. So I'm going to, now I have no choice but to throw this in there. And
we'll see
cool. But before it was kind of hard. It just took a lot of time and energy and effort. And Opus, I forget how much it costs, but it's like affordable. It was $20 a month or something. I don't know. It was fairly affordable for the fact that you don't have to sit there and do all these cuts in the video. So I don't know. I might be Tori sending it your way to cut it up for us on opus.pro. Anyway, so I love this new tool. I think it's a really great opportunity for those of us who don't have like a staff or anything to really easily create long form video that turn it into short. So sorry, that's my ad for today. Okay, so replies was your next one.
So a lot of these, some of these content pillars are not going to relate to other things. I found out after looking at all of our content, I want to increase awareness. I go back to the top. I want to increase awareness of our brand. So the best way to track awareness is how many impressions, how many people actually saw it. And the best way that I saw what was getting the most impressions was whenever I was replying to fighters or replying to the UFC or replying to influencers and kind of piggybacking on their influence and their so you go to UFC and you see UFC whatever below it, then I'm getting those impressions. People are seeing who we are.
So they're clicking
and
through.
So that was an important enough insight that I found out that I felt it needed to be its own content pillar.
And it made sense for that brand. And interestingly enough, actually, commenting, for those of you who aren't as big of a team or a smaller company, I think this is where a lot of companies are really doing poorly, because you go and you you answer your people who comment on your stuff, you put your content up, but they're not sharing other people's content, and they're not going out to other people's content and connecting and
I had a goal of doing 20 replies per day to different things. And, I love it. And so it's so easy to do that. If it's you don't have to put an opinion, you don't have to put something. Well, you can put a couple fire emojis on somebody's Instagram, or say this was some of the best engagement I had was whenever people would make funny UFC videos that were not from the UFC, but they're just from the meme accounts. And then I would comment on it and it'd be like, oh, that's a real UFC account. Like, oh my gosh, I'm getting validation from this brand that this is actually a funny thing. And that seemed to,
I love it. Really, I mean, because you do have that. I mean, especially as a big brand, but even as a smaller brand, you do, because people don't expect it. For a smaller brand to reach out and connect with them in that way. And I love that you say you went out and did 20 a day. I think that's great to do. I do this thing called the 2x2 that I talk about a lot. So if you go back and look anywhere, you can see I talk about it, where you take about 20 minutes a day and you leave 2 comments, you share or reply to 1 more, and then try to ask a question somewhere. And one of the things that's interesting right now is that LinkedIn is rewarding that. It's rewarding it. And not just fire emojis, unfortunately, on LinkedIn. They want, they want a whole sentence with like some thought leadership in it. So they want to know that the thing you're talking about is something that you have, you know, whatever. So that's great for LinkedIn. For Instagram, though, I think a slightly longer comment is working slightly better because there's just too many spam accounts doing these quick things at this point. But yeah, really, really cool. Such a great point. Thank you. I just wanted to point that out. And then FOMO, what does that mean?
So FOMO,
fear of missing out.
Yeah, fear of missing out. I coined that after, you know, we had one of our big events. What we would do is we would have a big party at a UFC pay-per-view. And then if you were one of our top purchasers or one of our top customers, then you got to go into this lounge and there was fighters there, free food, free drinks. And so I'm in there whenever I wasn't interviewing the fighters, I'm taking clips and then I'm editing that and putting it into, you know, CapCut and making a cool, quick little 15-second promo video that like, oh, wow, it looks awesome in there. You know, like I want to, you know, like I want to be there. And that's not focused on the fighter or personality, but it's not completely focused on, the product. It's just showing people how good of a time you have. And that was a content pillar that we had. That might not apply to anybody else who doesn't throw parties, you know. Yeah, you guys absolutely could apply.
Pictures today, guys. Pictures. Get them on out. Like let's get all together afterwards and do some pictures. But that's the thing, you want to have fear of missing out. I love that. That's a good content pillar for us.
Yeah, and the last one is real time. What's the content that you can make in real time that is going to be good? And looking at this, I don't know, like, is it going to be videos from the press conference? Is it going to be videos on fight night? Is it going to be posting on Instagram stories and seeing, showing people behind the scenes? It's stuff that you make right there and post right there. It's not some of these videos that you take a while and edit or, you plan. And that is its own content pillar. That's a different type of content than any of these others.
And as far as like your whole KPI role, which just means, that's your measurements, right? At the bottom, you had all these fancy tools. So tell us how we can get these kinds of things if you don't have all these fancy tools.
So there's analytics that get provided in the back of all of these, social tools. It's a pain to go in and, put this together manually if you don't have a tool, but it is possible. You can go into Twitter and you can export your tweets for the last 90 days and see which one of those had the most link clicks.
Actually, they have a dashboard on the back that tells you.
But they have it even more. If you export it, you get even more analytics.
Yes,
you can go look at what they provide you, but then if you export an Excel sheet, you can get much more detailed. Now, if you have a analytics tool, then you can look at these and these are basic KPIs that I just listed down here, and you can see that they're not they're not the same. Some of them are, but you need to, whenever you're thinking about that, you don't have to measure every single KPI for all of your content series, because that's not like, if the goal is to just generate awareness, then just measure awareness. You don't have to tally up all the engagements for all this stuff. You can, but try to figure out which ones are the most important and stick to those to make your life a lot easier.
Plus, then that's the ones that you can come back and say, hey, we had really great engagement on this particular series. In fact, we had 20 comments when we usually only have 4. I've seen that, Facebook does that for me sometimes. It says, your video is getting 90% more, engagement than other
Post
things.
Another like it. Yeah.
Yes. So they're starting to tell us that. How many of you actually look at the back end of your analytics ever on social? Yeah. Nope. Okay, so it's really quite simple to do. You open up the back end and you see what actually hit, what didn't hit. I think it's useful, and I think most people who are running a small social media presence are only looking at 2 or 3 channels, right? So it's not even that many channels to look at. Certainly, I'm sure you notice on LinkedIn how many people maybe saw, because your analytics are in every single post right there. It says, it was seen by this many people, and then you see how many people liked it, how many people commented on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really helpful. And so
and even for your personal brand on LinkedIn, imagine if you could go back and if you had been keeping track of every single post you made for the last year, which ones had links, which ones were videos, which ones had pictures, which ones were you giving advice, which ones were you giving a personal life update, and measure that against each other. And then you'd be able to say like, oh, if I want to grow my LinkedIn, I need to do more of this one. And that's kind of what this is all about.
Yeah. So it gives you like information in order to do your job better. I love that. And so, do you have tools? I know you use like fancy tools. So do you have tools that you recommend to people that are when they ask?
Um, I like Zoom. If it's mainly sports focused. Those are really great guys there. Um, I'm obviously very biased against the tool that I helped build, which was now called Conviva Social Insights. And but I like tools that make tagging content easy. So whenever you are looking at a specific tool, ask them to go through the tag flow of how you tag content. For me, I don't love to try to think. There's some tools where you can tag content, but you have to post it through the platform and add the tags to the piece of content. I like to be able to go back in time and look at a list of things and be like, okay, tag this with this, tag this with this, tag this with this. Or if they have any sort of AI tools that are like tag videos that are 30 seconds long, that feature a username, that are vertical
Mm-hmm.
and only on Instagram, and tag those all with one specific thing, and there's tools now that you can use these sort of AI automated tagging to really, cut down on time. And that's what I'm a big fan of. So if you're looking for a tool and you're serious about your content strategy, you know, anybody can, all of them have posting, all of them have basic analytics. But for me, if I'm trying to really improve and be iterative on my content strategy, I need a solution that has great content tagging capabilities.
Yeah, so I love that that's a really interesting one to look for when you're looking. And right now I kind of think it's Wild West, honestly, with analytics tools because of AI. They are just I am assuming there's going to be a ton of them that come out in the next couple of years that make it so much easier to
Yes.
create that kind of content and look at that. And so to measure your content.
Yeah,
So
because you're gonna have AI in the future is gonna be like, look at these 1,000 videos and add 100 tags to each one of them. And it'll be like, man, happy faces, kids,
mhm.
outside, talking about this, talking about this. And AI is going to be able to tag all those with, somebody build this and then hire me to work on it. But if it
Yeah, I
doesn't
think you
exist,
this sounds like we need to make a tool.
yeah. And then so you tag all these with 100, you throw that into Excel, and you can then do some analysis to see which one of these specific features of your content, you know,
Move the needle most.
moves the needle the most. And that's kind of
Really
where we're going.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's the future, I think, really. And also, it'll have a tag in there for whether that content was AI generated or not,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So it'll know. So that's also an interesting point
Yeah.
because so much more content. That's a question I had for you too, because there's going to be so much more content. How are we going to know, like, you know, what to believe, what to think about these things?
We're entering a really dangerous phase where it's going to, especially with all the really terrible news that's going on, and
Yeah.
Israel and Pakistan. You have to take a look at every single video, and you have to be like, is this real? Like the level of technological literacy that's required to not get duped online is increasing daily. So, that's why I think, getting your content from reputable sources is important. If you're on Twitter, make sure you read the notes on different videos. Like this
Mhm.
video is actually from 3 years ago, but there was a video the other day that was, all these planes getting shot out of the sky, and it was from a video game. It was a completely 3D, and it's like, but nobody knows that. So,
Yeah.
I think that we're going to have to do a job as an industry of increasing, technological literacy among a lot of people, so that they have the knowledge to question, is this a real thing?
I think that's so important you say that because I did see one of those too. All of these airplanes like crashing into the water and things like that. Yes, I saw that too. And I mean, I saw several different versions of that actually. And the game was pretty realistic looking compared to what you've seen before.
Mhm.
And underneath it, there was people saying, it's not real. It's not real. It's not real. So there's people that are trying to help, I guess, as you're going through. So people are helping each other. But
Yeah.
there was a ton of people and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. So I do think it's going to be an issue.
And you can imagine that these platforms like Meta, or, and YouTube, and TikTok are investing massive resources into being able to identify AI and misinformation. I'm billions of dollars because they recognize that this is going to be such a important thing to be able to. Do you want to go to a platform that you have no idea what's true, or do you want to go to some place where you can actually believe what you're reading that's kind of being a little bit policed? Now, depending on who you are, people don't censor us, but like, no, this is important. Like
the X don't censor anything, but that's caused some problems even in the last couple of weeks with misinformation just spreading like wildfire because there's nothing holding it back anymore. There was some filters before, but there's not many anymore. So I'm not, against one or another. I'm just saying you've got to think about what you're reading and where you're at, and the platform you're on does matter at this point. So interesting, very interesting. So as far as that goes, do you think that content is going to be less, online content, social media content is going to be less influencing to people? Like, or do you think people are going to tune it out because of this?
It's a good question. I think that a scary use case is, the reason people are posting videos like that game and all these fake things are because X is now incentivizing people because they're trying to get paid. And so whatever gets the most views is going to get the most money. And I think that is just incentivizing the worst actors in social media. It's not the right way to do it. That stuff will get views. So I think that the platforms need to figure out a way to curb that in a way that's not totally censorship, but like identify and educate people about what's real and what's not. It's just where the presidential election is going to come up, there are going to be hundreds of fake videos of all of the candidates saying things that look real, that that your parents are not going to be able to, like, they're going to say, I saw, Biden say this today. And it's like, well, no, that was fake. But what do we do? Like, it's got to be on the platforms. And I know that they're investing a lot of resources into trying to figure that out. It's not an easy solution.
No, it truly isn't an easy solution. And you're right. I mean, I just cloned my voice last week. Ooh. Yeah. So now, so I'm working on.
You don't even have to come here anymore.
No, I don't. I can type anything I want and it sounds a lot like me. I'm just going to be honest. It's pretty scary, but also very interesting because there's just going to be a lot of things that I don't have my phone right here. It's over there filming us right now, but I can actually, those of you who are here, I'm happy to play it for you later and see what you think of it. But I do think that these kinds of things are really, they're just easily, it cost me $5. It cost me $5 and it sounds just like me. If I wanted to pay 20, they actually would go to even a level deeper and make it sound even more like me. It's very expressive. It sounds like a real person. So the old, robotic voices, that's done with. They can put emotion now in the voices, and the emotion is there. And I even found out, like, I had the word record in there and it said record. And I was like, oh, and I put RE-cord and it was record. And I'm like, dang, okay. So, I mean, there's just easy ways to get around it sounding bad. So yeah, just somebody told me it wasn't great with accents yet, which is great. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, with other accents, but I think that there's going to be AI that is. I mean, because this was probably just tuned for an American accent, this particular tool. So I think there'll be tools. And by the way, this tool will also let me speak in whatever language I want to speak in. So I can type out the thing in a different language, but it'll be in an American accent. So I'm sure I'm putting French in my mouth would be terrible. So mind my French. But I can do that now. And so the question is, if I can do that with like $1 down the first month and $5 a month after, what else is possible? For somebody who takes a bunch of recordings of a public figure and puts them into this AI. I mean, the AI is trying, it was very clear you got to have your blah, blah, blah. But are they policing that? I don't know.
Yeah. And I look at, to jump a little bit to, a similar thing. I look at AI from the view And I look at everything from the view of a content creator because that's my core. And whenever I got laid off earlier this year, this is when ChatGPT was really blowing up. I was like, oh man, they're going to take all of our jobs. Like ChatGPT is going to take all of our jobs. Oh, look, we got this that can cut up videos. We got this that can write everything. We got this. And I was like, well, yes and no. Like they might cut down on some jobs, but the people that are going to be successful are the people who know how to use these AI tools correctly. So you need to familiarize yourself with what's out there so that you can do your job more efficiently, because that's all it is. These things are helping people do the work of 3 or 4 people, and with, in less time than, they were all, so educate yourself with what tools are out there. And try
and how to use them too.
And how to use them.
Because I mean, an AI could like write this chart, but an AI couldn't execute this chart.
Yeah.
I mean, it could do some of the pieces of the chart, but it needs a strategist. You have to be the strategist and learn. And P.S. another commercial break. In a couple of weeks, PRSA Houston is having their PR day on, I think it's November 2nd, 4th. I don't know. Help me. November 2nd. And they have an entire track on tools like this, AI tools and different things that are going on. I'm speaking there too. I'm talking about human-centric voices. And you're speaking to AI for content. So Jennifer Tejada will be there as well. And several others. I started to write out who they all were, but a lot of people from Social Media Breakfast are speaking at this event. So I think we should, convene over there. But yeah, it's really important that you educate yourself. And I'm getting on an airplane today to go to Nashville, Tennessee for PRSA Icon, their international conference. And I'm also speaking about that human-centric AI and how to humanize AI there. And that, again, that's part of the reason I cloned my voice. Yes. So it's part of my presentation there. But in the end of the day, you are so right that we are responsible for our own education in this case. And don't be taken for like a fool during this thing. You are important. And that human touch to what you're doing is critical to making sure this thing does not go off the rails. I need more humans in AI.
Yeah, I saw something that said, at the very beginning that it's, ChatGPT and things like that are going to make bad copywriters good, but it's going to make good copywriters great. So, and I really think about that, it's still a robot, it's not going to give it that feeling so you have to take that and make it your own.
Actually, you remind me of something. When Grammarly first came out, like, I don't know how many,
a while ago,
10 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know.
At least 10.
It was a long time ago. When Grammarly first came out, somebody did a study on it about spell check. And they took different writers of different abilities and they tested them before they were spell checked and after they were spell checked. And before they were spell checked, they put them at a certain grade level and all the things they do with leveling whenever they do that. And then they had them do that and then spell check their work and then judge them again. The ones that were at the lower grade levels, theirs went up like a couple of levels, like it got better. And the ones that were like, the really great writers, theirs actually went down because the spell check made small little mistakes and made word choices that were not as inventive or thoughtful. So just realize that, and I've been working with ChatGPT and other kinds of AI. I've had AI tools for a couple of years now that I've been experimenting with. And what I've found them to be is they were very crude tools at first. Like they were not very helpful or even hardly useful. ChatGPT is a lot more useful because it gives you a little bit more, context. But guess what? The prompts you put into it, like if you just ask it, give me 10 things that a public relations professional should know, it's going to give you 10 very basic, kind of uninspired things.
Sure, your prompts are very important. I mean, you should honestly be getting ChatGPT to write your prompts and then take those prompts and put it back.
That's what I've been doing too.
It's like write me the best, most detailed prompt for how I can accomplish this, and with this as the goal.
Yeah, I ask it that too. I'll ask it a question like, What do you need to know about this in order for you to give me great information? Like, give me a list of things I need to tell you, and then it'll give you a list of what you need to tell it, and then you just answer those questions and give it back to it, and then it has what it needs.
Yeah, my dad's writing a book right now,
Mhm.
and he's like, I'm having trouble with the ending. I just don't like it. It's like, well, let's try to use ChatGPT to see, he goes, I'm writing a book. I'm doing this. This is the main character. This is the goal. This is kind of what it's based on. I'm having trouble coming out with an ending that's this. What questions should I look at so that I can better, that you can help me write an ending? And it gave 10 of the best questions, literary questions that like I've ever seen. And he was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, the robots are coming,
Yeah.
And so he's like, that was one of the most, eye-opening things. Like I didn't, I never thought about that. Like, and so it's just so useful if you know how to use it properly.
Yeah, I love it. So that's really important. So that's what we'll be talking about at PR Day. That's one of the things I'm going to be talking about. So I talk about this whole thing about having, you talk about prompts, but what about preparation? Preparing for the prompts is even bigger deal. So anyway, that's the great thing about ChatGPT. You never have to look at a blank page again. And ChatGPT, by the way, is just Kleenex because there's a bunch of different models. So it's just we've now called everything ChatGPT, but truth is there's a lot of different models.
Yeah.
Yeah. Claude is actually pretty good too. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer is our resident AI expert in the back there because she works for a company that does the AI. So we have amazing people at Social Media Breakfast of Houston that have really great experience. And that includes you. Okay, what is our timing here? We don't have much time. So do I have any questions from the audience or from the room? And there is a microphone in the room right in front of you if somebody would ask a question for Mike. Oh, he may have to turn you on. Yeah.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Great. So one of the things that I consistently hear at Social Media Breakfast is about building community and building trust. So with all these new circumstances, are there new approaches to that?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
That is a good question. I mean, there is the time where social media managers and people on the marketing team are just writing tweets and writing blog posts are over. You need to start thinking about the personalities and tying people to your actual brand. Like I always advocate like, okay, we can put out this blog post about this new feature, but it'll be much better if we get the product manager to describe that and make it a video and make people familiar with the people who are at this company and start getting them in there. Not everybody's, going to want to be on camera. But every social media manager that gets hired by sports teams nowadays is you have to be able to interview players. You have to be able to be good on camera. It's not just about writing content or coming up with ideas. Like you have to be that person that, that builds that face. And that's because those faces and, those personalities, they build trust in the same way that influencers do. So I think that, you have to begin to tie personalities back to, your content and your company to build that level of trust, and you'll see dividends from that as if you continue to do that.
Yeah, I feel like that too. I feel like that I've been saying this a lot. Community is the killer app because you can't really fake that. It's like you can't fake community. Also, your personal brand, which I hate that word, but it is what it is. It's personal brand that actually is the most important thing because you are going to, how are you going to stand out from the sea of content that's washing over us? Well, you're going to actually stand in front of a camera, or get on a podcast, or write something amazing that actually has your opinion in it and a taste of who you are in it. You can teach the AI to write like you, by the way. You can do that. I've taught mine how to write like me, and I do let it do it from time to time, but then I always interject a story, some sort of anecdote that nobody else can put in there but me. Right. So like a story of something that happened to me. I was talking about, reading about Grammarly years ago. I mean, they're not going to come up with that. The AI will never come up with that story on its own.
Not a real one, at least.
Not a real story. Yeah, they may make it up. They may hallucinate the
on
story.
our trip to the moon.
Yeah. But I mean, it's true. I mean, it can. And in fact, when it first came out, I asked it, who is Cami Heiza? And it told me I went to a school I didn't go to. It made up all kinds of stuff about me on my bio. So you have to be careful on the search side. Although there are a lot of tools, including ChatGPT, they just add a little Google search on it because Bard did. Bard added a Google search on it. And then there's a really great tool called Perplexity, like you're perplexing. And it is a search engine, basically. It's free. And you go and you can ask it a search engine type questions, and it will give you sort of a chat GPT looking kind of answer. And then it'll also give you the links where it got it all from at the top.
Yeah, sources
So
are important.
Perplexity is a really good tool for that. I love it. And then again, I wish I could tell you some really good measurement tools that are AI right now, but I would say, you know, the back end of any tool that you have like now is very much good. I mean, any of them, Hootsuite has it. Any tool that you're using to post content will have a, you can definitely get replies, comments, links, likes,
and a good place to
shares,
start is there's
things like that.
You can search Instagram analytics or LinkedIn analytics or whatever, even in the App Store, and you'll get basic apps that are $1, you know, per month or something like that, you know, and they're not going to be as robust. They're not going to have tagging. They're not going to have, you know, but like if you don't like going into the back of, you know, your Facebook page 3 times a week, then there's simple things out there that'll give you the basics of what you need.
Yeah. But again, you don't need it. So that's the good news. You know, you can just go in the back. And I think having a tool like this, what do you guys think about a tool like this to help you really focus in on what your measurement should be? I think this is really helpful. Thank you so much. Is there anything online for questions?
Oh, we got one more.
Okay. And here too. Okay. Let me get one online real quick. Okay.
Yes, I had more of a technical thing. When you
Sure.
say tagging, are you talking about hashtags?
No. So whenever I think about, so I'm thinking about in these analytics systems, you have a piece of content, and whenever I say tagging, I'm thinking something, a word that's not even in the thing. I'm thinking this, tagging it with pay-per-view giveaway, tagging it with pack giveaway, tagging it with event giveaway, all of these in the content series, those are all separate tags for content.
And that would be inside of a tool, not on actual social media. You can't do it like yourself, like in the wild. You have to have a tool. And on the back end of that tool, it's kind of like when you tag somebody in a picture, you know, online, you know, you put their name. Yeah. You'll just put their, like, you'll tag me like that was Cami. You can tag their face in a picture. But on the back
end. And then you can go in and search, show me all tagged pictures of Cami.
Right.
And so you would say, show me all tagged pay-per-view giveaways. And then it'll show all 7 of your posts that were tagged with pay-per-view giveaway. You can then take a look. What is the average engagement? You know, they get 10 likes per post. Now let's serve up. What's the event giveaway? Here's 10. These get 15 engagement. Like that makes like, now we can make some decisions on which one of these actually works better because we're separating and grouping our content in a way that is able to
You still look confused.
So does this mean you have to put it in when you're setting up the post or something?
It happens on the back end. Like, so
is that something you do yourself or something?
It is something you have to come up with the tags and you have to tag the content yourself within these tools. Now, like I said, there's some AI tools that'll be like tag all Instagram videos that are 30 seconds that are
actually, there's a really good example of this. So actually they made them get rid of it, but Google Photos is a little bit like this. I dump all my photos in there and it goes around and it looks for the faces. Like I've already tagged my kid, you know, like this is my kid and his name, all my kids, all of them have tags in there. And then it goes through my photos and it finds anything that looks like them. And in it, every once in a while, it tests me. It says, is this the same person? Is this the same person? And I say, yes, yes, yes. So I'm training it. Yes, 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 yes. And then what ends up happening is I have this little folder of all of my kids' photos, and I did not have to go through every photo and do that myself. So I do believe AI will come to the rescue for us, but you would have to tag it first and tell it what to look for.
In the same way that if you have an iPhone and you're going to your search for your pictures, you can tag, you search red. And every picture that's has red in it will come up, and that's because it's tagged with that red. Or if you search boats or money or credit cards or because I'm always
same thing with Google Photos, they can do the same thing.
Yeah, and so it identifies that, and it places all these little tags on the back end of your pictures, And I'm talking about doing that to your content the same way, so that you can figure out which one of like all the red pictures versus all the yellow pictures. Red pictures get better engagement. If those are the sort of insights you want.
And you can do that in that tool you said, Zoom or whatever it was, right? What was it?
Yeah, Zoomf is good.
How do you spell that?
ZOOMPH.
Zoom.
Really like those guys. But also, Sprinkler has tagging.
That's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive. Sprout has tagging. There's some of these things like HubSpot have basic tagging, but I think it's too complicated.
As Tori shakes her head, we know all about Sprinkler. Yeah, so there are tagging in some of these tools, but I do believe it's going to get more, like, again, it's on your iPhone, it's in the Google Photos, it exists. I think that it's going to grow. So I think you should keep your eyes open for, if you see a tool like that says that, now you've heard Mike say, look for tagging. And if you see a tool that comes up and says, hey, we'll measure all your social media and we let you tag your posts on the back, you'd be like, yes, okay, that's interesting to me. So use this as a jumping off point for that. Online question.
How do people know if you exist, if you are not doing cold DMs, cold emails, cold calling, or networking events?
How do they know you exist if you don't do that?
This was at the very beginning of the discussion.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
How do people know you exist? Is this so this isn't an AI thing if it became at the beginning?
Never mind. I just saw the question.
So they were saying, okay, so the comment was that you should be cold calling and cold DMing, or no? I don't get it. Okay, tell us. You were there. You figured it out. Tell us.
He was saying that you should be using social media to be posting about your business.
Mm-hmm.
So you're taking them through a customer journey.
Yes.
But what I was saying is, if you are not going out in the real world, cold calling, cold emailing, going into networking events, speaking on stages, nobody knows you exist. So you got to pick one. That's what I was trying to say.
I got it. Okay, great. No, it's absolutely true. Yeah.
And my counter to that would be, there are certain things that these social networks promote and are the flavor of the month. Right now, it's Reels and vertical video. The only way to grow on Instagram is through Instagram Reels. You're not going to grow posting pictures or posting, you have to make Reels. And the same, and it's very similar with YouTube Shorts. Though the people who are growing the fastest on YouTube right now are posting lots of YouTube Shorts. So if you want to get seen, like, you have to lean into what is being prioritized by, these platforms. And that's just, a level of education that you just have to be aware of, or you need to talk to people or come to wonderful groups like this.
And it will change. I mean, it always does change.
Yeah, like long form was incredibly popular for a long time. Like that's what was being pushed. Now it was short form, and now it's vertical video just completely. Like everybody's watching stuff on their phone. So they're trying to keep people inside these platforms. And right now that's
because that's where the money is. If the longer you're on that platform, the more they can sell you as an asset. So that's what it is. Agreed. So, but it doesn't mean it's beautiful for our community building and our perfection for our business. I mean, in the end of the day, you do have to sell something to somebody somewhere. And I do think networking events and these kinds of things are really important. And those of you who are like kind of iffy about that, I mean, it's difficult. I know.
There's no substitute for making there's no substitute for making a real life.
It's hard to leave the house some days. It was hard for me today. I mean, the traffic was horrendous coming here. But, coming here and seeing all these faces and like connecting with you here is like, I don't care how many people come. It's gold to me. So, so I think, again, how do you stand out in the world these days? You actually make the people that you're serving count, and that you let them know that they count. I think. No substitute for going back?
Oh, there's no substitute for a real life connection, making a real life connection.
That's beautiful. All right, guys. I think that's it for today. We are at 10:03, so we're 3 minutes over. Woo! So thank you so much, Mike, for being here.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure.
You get like our little sticker.
Woo!
All right. So
excellent.
Yeah, it's a huge speaker gift. But thank you so much. And then we'll be here next month, same time, which is a Friday, second Friday of the month, and we are going to have John Pacini, who owns Mom 2.0, is one of the owners of Mom 2.0, and they're going to be talking about influencing and influencers and working with influencers in 2024 because things have changed a lot. Working with influencers, and you know, because you work with influencers, things have changed a lot. And you know, there's a lot of things with that, the trust cycle, all that stuff. So we're going to be talking about influencers, and he just sold Mom 2.0 to a very big media company. He's spending half of his time here and the other half in New York City. So really, really big guest, and hope you guys will come, and hope that the Use at Home can come on in too. And if not, we have the live stream. So it's great to see everybody, and we'll talk to you next month. Take care. Bye.